Hey, come see us on tour. I'll be in Davenport, Iowa, Las Vegas, Nevada, Chicago, Illinois, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Well, I'm still here with Paul Stone, and I wanted, so the last time Paul was here, or one of the previous times here, we talked about the unemployment rate, and Paul made the case that they've changed the way that they count the unemployment rate in the 80s. And so if you still counted it the way they did in the 80s, the rate, which they say now is somewhere around 4 or 5%, would be much higher. Paul's guess is that it's 25%. And we had the other, I'm blanking on her name, the other economist on the show. She thought it was around 12 to 15%. Whatever it is.
Those are bad numbers, all of those.
Those are, but guess what? They're now starting to admit it, right? So here, Zero Hedge says, Powell, now he's the head of the Fed, right? He says there is an argument that payrolls may be a bit overstated.
Whoa.
So that's another way of saying that the unemployment rate is higher than we've said. So that's
how he said it.
Look at the way
there is an argument.
There is an argument. There's an argument that payrolls are overstated. They talk. It's all that talk. It's like the way lawyers speak to confuse regular people what they're really saying. So then Ed Dowd, who we know is a smart guy and on everything and used to run, I think he still runs a hedge fund of himself. He says this is a very big deal. And my take is that the Fed is setting up the fall guy for what I think down the road will be one of the biggest policy errors in the last 30 years. The books are not only cooked, but that we estimate the significant rise in disabilities since 2021 is understating the unemployment rate by 100 to 150 basis points. Now, I don't know what that means, but I do know what he's saying is that the Fed is cooking the books and there's going to be a fall and they know it's coming. Also, there's a thing happening because of something that happened during COVID. Some people say it's effects from the jab, that there's lots of disabilities, right? But it's definitely from COVID, the COVID policy, or it's from the COVID era. So there's a lot more, according to Ed Dowd, and he knows about this because he's a numbers guy, that there's a lot more people on disability. So there's a lot less people in the workforce because of physical disabilities. And he's saying that it's understating the unemployment rate by 100 to 150 basis points.
I don't know if this is incompetence so much as being done on purpose.
I agree.
Being done on purpose.
And so Paul agrees that. And Ed Dowd kind of sounds like he said that the Fed is setting up a fall guy. So this guy says, no wonder they're trying to start World War III. That's exactly what happens when your economy and all the smoke and mirrors that you use to keep it propped up aren't working anymore. You got to go to war. And that's why they just passed a bill that's going to make selective service automatic, right? You don't go sign up anymore. They sign you up. And by the way, feminism, you won because they're signing up women too.
On top of the sports thing, you win this.
And on top of having males in with female sports, this is like Enron right before they crashed and burned. So, and then we'll get to your Substack. So, Paul? First of all, it sounds like you're being proven right? So when you said that, even I was skeptical, a little. And now I'm like, oh, no, he was right. Here it comes. And so go ahead, take your victory lap.
Thanks. I work for the people that are watching. I work for the people that built this country. I'm not in this business to move precious metals from our account to yours. I'm in this business because it's a solution to a problem. And the problem will affect the retirees the most because how can they bounce back after something we're facing seems to be so devastating out in front of us? When we look at when I said before on an earlier show, if you go to shadowstats.com, shadow stats, and I know it sounds conspiratorial. I've suggested to Mr. Williams to maybe come up with a more, fun name than that.
Sounds like a company that makes voting machines is what it sounds like.
Yeah, that actually would be a good name for stealing the next election.
Yeah.
So when we look at the mechanisms upon which we would count unemployment and inflation, the government used to kind of be people from your neighborhood, and they had to come home and answer to people that they lived around. Kids are playing soccer, and some neighbor says, "Hey, how about that unemployment rate? How about?" They had to tell the truth, right? And so it was a true counting of what inflation would be and unemployment. So when when Reagan takes the White House, they need to get that inflation number looking better as fast as they can. So why don't we kick out shelter from the inflation calculation, and let's really reduce the cost, the weight that we put on the cost increases on agricultural related products and petroleum. Now, I'm not saying Reagan engineered this. I mean, how could one president engineer 5,000 things that go off in the country every day or every week, right? But some people came up with this idea. So they changed the recipe in 1980. They changed it again in 1998. Why is that year important? Well, that's the year the baby boomers began retiring. It's 70 million people at peak earnings begin to leave the workforce forever. So when we look at debt, just for some milestone markers, in the turn of the century, gold was 300, right? And debt was about $3.5 trillion bucks, and the dollar's worth 56 cents. Today, the dollar's worth 3 cents. Debt is 34 trillion, and gold is 2,300.
Wow. So you're talking in 2000, you're saying gold was $300 an ounce, and now it's $2,300 an ounce?
Yep. Yes, sir. Wow.
And
so that's bad news. It's very bad news. Gold and silver is a location for money you want to maintain, keeping yours, consider your financial property. And yes, it has one hell of a track record of rising during crisis and chaos. It also rises during money printing. So the 30 trillion we've created in the last, and I'll get back to your question. I'm sorry
go ahead.
Veer a little. But if you say, okay, the war in Iraq, when George H.W. was president, that was $1.5 trillion. So let's say the country kind of needed to create about $2 trillion in fake money to, make things go up until the year 2000. It's 2024. In 24 years, they've created $30 trillion in money out of thin air. I'm going to quit calling it debt. You'll never hear me say it again. It's not debt. It's money they printed out of thin air to pay the bills within this country that the economy doesn't produce enough revenue to cover the cost to run the show. Now in comes your unemployment number. When I tell you it's 25%, that's not my economic wizardry. That's Mr. Williams on his lovely website. He says unemployment is 25%. You count it the old-fashioned way, which is, hey, are you working? No. Do you want to be? Yes, you're unemployed. That's pretty much it, folks. We need the truth. It's the one thing.
So how do they count it now, Paul?
My understanding is they just run algorithms against ADP payroll activity.
Of course, that's how.
Okay.
And the podium, guess what? Yeah, Trump will take what he can when he's president. Any good news he can get. Unemployment dropped while he was president. Biden's showing unemployment dropping. It just peaked a second ago, which actually kicks off an indicator that has preceded every recession we've ever been through. And that's when unemployment upticks at least 0.3% above its cyclical average. That is an indicator of recession around the corner. It has only been wrong once. It has preceded the last 12 recessions we've ever been through. We could talk more about that another time.
So,
What have we been in, a boom?
If you think 25% of your workforce isn't working, doesn't that sound like enough money that's missing for the government to then print the money to cover the cost of $30 trillion in bills in 24 years?
Yes, I would say if that's the question, the answer would be yes.
Jimmy, automation. Haven't we automated anything? Is people really struggling to think, well, computers automate a lot of stuff, so everyone should still be working. Automation is it. I was at a Christmas party. Did I share this one with you before, Jimmy? 2018 Christmas party.
No,
it was back in Washington. There was a gentleman there talking about his buddy that he was college roommates with is involved in a government agency venture capital firm. We'll just leave the acronyms out for now. The number one thing they were researching is how 25% of our workforce would be unemployed over the next 7 years. This was 2018. Ta-da! Automation sends people to the couch forever. That's what's so ridiculous about the hopes and dreams for AI. How much money does a robot spend in the economy?
Zero.
Oh, well, then I guess the government will just print the money so that worker doesn't starve nor his family.
No, the robot will be our God.
I hear you.
Yeah. So that's why I think things are way worse than most people are saying. people are letting on. Powell is now, the head of the Fed is letting on that what you've been saying is true. And if you go to it's called, what is it, shadow.net? Is that it?
Shadow Stats, STATS, shadowstats.com.
Shadowstats.com. And, you know, when you brought that up on the show, the other economist I had on, she immediately knew what you were talking about. And she was like, oh, yeah, that's a reliable source. And and she's a famous CNBC lady. I can't believe I'm blanking on her name.
How do I get involved in that thing where I bet on everybody's failure?
She wrote the book. You will end up with nothing and like it.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Oh, is it right here? Anyway, so
Judge Smales from Caddyshack.
So, I think they are getting ready for another war, which is why they also had all the immigrants come in, because they're wanting them all to join the military. Dick Durbin said so on the floor of the Senate.
We know they're fit because they got here.
They got here, so they're fit. So let's move on. Go ahead. You want to one more thing you want to say, Paul? Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Not like our fat-titted broke kids that don't have jobs. They want it. These dreamers.
Carol Roth.
Carol Roth is her name. Thank you, Steph. Carol Roth was the elder economist who was validating what you were saying about the unemployment rate. So there it is. Get ready for World War III, ladies, because you're being drafted, and that's all because the geniuses in Washington and the Fed have engineered a failing economy once again. Hey, guess what? Our sponsor, Colonial Metals, helped me with my goal of protecting my financial future. Being at the whim of the stock market or the current administration doesn't make me feel safe or secure, but having a self-directed IRA, that's a self-directed IRA where I can safely store gold and silver, assets that have stood the test of time, no matter what the economy or the government policies are, that makes sense to me. It does. Colonial Metals Group has helped me create a self-directed IRA where I can have direct access to my assets. Let the team of experts over at CMG help you protect your family's future. Their level of professionalism and the ability to listen make it easy for you to learn everything you need to know about preserving all you've worked for. Maybe you're just getting started, or maybe you already have a 401k or an IRA, and you're thinking about your parents' retirement. Regardless, Colonial Metals Group, they can help. We put together a special offer for you, for our audience. Click on the link in the description below, or call the special 800 number, and you'll receive a safe and up to $10,000 in free silver. Go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Jimmy's-Dore-Show or call 888-910-1419. 888-910-1419. Hey, come see us on tour. I'll be in Davenport, Iowa, Las Vegas, Nevada, Chicago, Illinois, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.